Well, hi, everybody. It's Laura, and welcome back, welcome home to the class of 74. I have one announcement before we dive into the show. That is, today is Valentine's Day, and you get your first episode of Season 2. But henceforth, the episodes will come out on Mondays at 6 a.m., That's right, with your coffee on Mondays. I missed you. I missed doing the podcast, and I've been doing a lot of promotion of the podcast. So I've been talking about all you guys on all these different shows and how I want to change the name of the Detention Club at Patreon to the Nicest People in America Club, because my listeners are the nicest people in America. Where are we? She heard from Clay, and she said, well, how are you? And he said, I'm not good. And then he got disconnected. Then Cynthia has just been told that her father has had a heart attack, and that's where her mother is, down in Washington, D.C. So Cynthia is a mess. She doesn't know what's going on. Well, let's just get to it, shall we? See what's going on with Cynthia. She'll bring us all up to date, won't she? I hope so. See you on the other side. Season 2, Episode 1. Stay calm and carry on. Cynthia, Mrs. Fitzgerald said, stepping closer. Cynthia clasped her hands over her face and abruptly dropped to sit cross-legged on the floor. Dad? A heart attack? Was he going to die? She smelled Mrs. Fitzgerald's scent, the mixture of jasmine and rose. That was Joy by Jean Patou. Very nice, but very expensive, her mother said. Cynthia felt a light hand on her back. Are you feeling faint? No, Cynthia said through her hands, and she bent toward the floor. She didn't know what else to do. Hide. But she couldn't hide, could she? Because this was real. Dad could be dying right now. She'd never given him his $1.50 back. The telephone rang and Cynthia scrambled to her feet to swipe it off the wall. Hello? Hi, darling heart. Mom, she shouted. She knew she sounded like a child. Is Dad about to die? No, her mother said. Cynthia took a breath. Thank you, God. She looked at Mimi and Mrs. Fitzgerald and whispered, She says no. They let out their breath. He's resting comfortably now, but he's been through a lot today. There were all these ding, ding, dinging sounds in the background. He had a heart attack? Cynthia asked. They're not absolutely sure yet. They've done a couple of EKGs. Done what? Electrocardiograms. EKGs, dear. They measure heartbeats. It comes out of the machine like a graph. There's this flat line that blips up like a mountain when the heart beats. The spaces between the heartbeats are called segments. And the doctors are searching segments for changes that could indicate there's been damage done to his heart. So far, they haven't found any, which is very, very good news. So he didn't have a heart attack? Cynthia walked over to let Ashette in the door, and when she turned around, found Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mimi holding their breath again. We won't know for sure, sweetie, till tomorrow. She covered the phone. They won't know what happened for sure till tomorrow. They exhaled. They ran a different kind of test, one that looks at the enzyme levels of your father's blood, but the lab results won't be back until tomorrow morning. Until then, your father is on strict bed rest, and I will be sitting in a chair right beside him. So what happened to him, Mom? Well, she heard her lighting a cigarette, inhale and then blow smoke out. Your father attended a breakfast meeting this morning with Jerry Ford. He's the minority leader of the House, in Congress. Dad had breakfast with a congressman? Well, he and about 250 other business executives at the Statler Hilton, she said, amused. The National Chamber of Commerce put the breakfast on, so they could hear about the president's economic plan. She chuckled. Your father was there at 7 a.m. sharp, because the chamber always has biscuits and gravy at their breakfasts for the Southerners. Now she sighed. I'm afraid your father's diet may have to change. He's not going to like that. Mrs. Fitzgerald looked as though she wanted to wrest the phone away from Cynthia, so she turned away. But what happened, Mom? At 8:30 or so, your father stood up to leave. He picked up his briefcase, but then he felt this terrible pain in his chest. It was so sharp and sudden, it knocked the breath right out of him, and he had to sit down again. Someone asked if he was all right, and he said, yeah, he thought so. He was waiting for a pain in his chest to subside, and the next thing he knew, they were rushing in an ambulance to George Washington Hospital. She laughed quietly. Your father said he nearly had a heart attack when they told him they thought he might have had a heart attack. Cynthia smiled a little. A lot of men have heart attacks around the capital these days, apparently, her mother continued. And the hospital's just down the street. She started talking to someone else on her end. Yes, that would be wonderful. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. They're moving Bill upstairs to a private room, which is great. Maybe he'll be able to sleep a little. It's so noisy down here. She took a drag on her cigarette. The bomb shelter was quieter the night we met than it is here. Whenever her mother was worried about her father, she always said something about the first time she met him. Cynthia's brother, Skip, said she did it because she was always trying to remember how she had married such an irritable stick in the mud. Does Skip know? Cynthia asked. I have to find him first, her mother said, annoyed. But I did speak with your sister. She's offered to come home. Uh-oh. Dad must be worse than she was letting on, because Beth never offered to do anything she wasn't already doing. I told her not to make any arrangements yet, her mother continued. Not until we understand exactly what your father's condition is. And you'll find out in the morning? Yes. So if we get stuck down here, Beth can stay with you at the house. But for now, sweetie, I want you and Mimi to pack a bag and go home with Mrs. Fitzgerald, okay? Okay, Cynthia said. That could be fun. And she reprimanded herself because she wasn't supposed to have fun, not when her father was sick. I also need you to call the kennel, sweetie, and tell them you'll be dropping Ashette off. Number's in the address book. Cynthia's heart sank. She had to put Ashette in dog prison? She knew Ashette hated Rougher, Fitzgerald's dog, and she'd never stop barking if she went there. But there must be another way. Poor Ashette would tremble like an earthquake the whole time she was at the kennel. And she needed Ashette right now. She needed her warm little heart beating next to hers. Her mother asked to speak to Mrs. Fitzgerald, and Cynthia reluctantly handed off the phone. She walked over to where Mimi was scooping herself some ice cream. We're supposed to spend the night at the Fitzgerald's, Memes, and I have to put poor Ashette in the dog prison because she barks at Rougher. Who's Rougher? Mimi asked, licking some ice cream off her hand before closing the carton. The Fitzgerald's black lab. He's nice enough, but Ashette hates him. Why can't we just stay here? Because no one trusts us, Cynthia told her. Well, maybe you should remind your mother Clay's in the hospital so she knows you won't have any boys over. Cynthia remembered what not Fred told her today. The Clay might have been tied up by mistake. She needed to tell Detective Fiduccia. She'd forgotten about that. But how? She wasn't supposed to tell anyone anything, and she was surrounded by people. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald had her back to them, talking in a low voice to her mother. Maybe Mrs. Valadares could spend the night, Mimi said, putting the ice cream away. Cynthia's eyebrows shot up. That was an idea. Do you think she would? Mimi shrugged, shoveling some ice cream into her mouth. She swallowed. Why not? Excuse me, Mrs. Fitzgerald? She turned around. I don't want to put Ashette in the kennel if I can help it. I love Ashette too, Cynthia, Mrs. Fitzgerald said, but last time she made Ruffer run away. Mrs. Fitzgerald was listening into the phone. She laughed and lowered the phone to her chin. Your mother says the kennel is much less expensive than the wandering dog finds at the pound. But Mimi thinks Mrs. Valadares might spend the night here with us. Then Ashette wouldn't have to go to the kennel. When Mrs. Fitzgerald repeated this possibility to Cynthia's mother, Cynthia could tell how hopeful she was this might happen. Having one of them over wasn't bad, but having 3 teenage girls over and on a school night, Annabelle and Greg were not very easy kids either. It was agreed Mimi would try to reach Mrs. Valadares and Mrs. Schuyler would call back in a half hour to find out what they were going to do. Mimi dialed Mrs. Valadares' house, but there was no answer there, so she tried the Watsons' house. Mrs. Valadares was there, and after a little back and forth about why couldn't Cynthia just leave the dog and come over and spend the night at their house, Mimi whispered that Cynthia's father had had his heart attack, which did the trick, because then Mrs. Valadares immediately agreed to come over. Cynthia cupped her hands over her mouth like a megaphone. Ashette, did you hear that? No prison kennel. The dachshund slowly peeked around the doorway from the den. Suspicious. Cynthia laughed and went over to pet her. At what time does she expect to arrive, Mimi? Mrs. Fitzgerald asked. Mimi pulled the mouthpiece down. 6. She says she'll bring dinner. That's very nice of her, Mrs. Fitzgerald said. Cynthia stood up and walked over to thank Mrs. Fitzgerald for picking them up at school. I'm only glad I could help, dear. You know, you don't have to stay now, Cynthia said. Mrs. Fitzgerald appeared to be thinking about this, what the odds were of major trouble occurring between now and 6 o'clock. I did want to make sure Greg picked up Annabelle at Pasture Ridge like I asked him to. Hey, guess what, Cynthia? Mimi said. Mrs. Valadares has Swenson TV frozen dinners hidden in the freezer. Fried chicken! Ashette started barking and dancing around while Mrs. Fitzgerald covered her ears and moved toward the counter where her keys, purse, and cigarettes lay. Thanks for sticking around until we heard from Mom. As I said, I'm only happy I could help. She put her cigarettes in her purse, snapped it shut, and tucked it under her arm. Then, ladies, I shall be on my way. She drew her card keys across the counter. Mimi, please thank Mrs. Valadares for me. When Mimi nodded, she turned to Cynthia. Call me if you need anything, Cynthia. Day or night, okay? Yes, great, thank you. She knew Mrs. Fitzgerald meant it. But it was funny about her. If Annabelle were in her place right now, and it was Mrs. Schuyler who was leaving, without a thought, Annabelle would run over and hug her and get a hug in return. But no one ever tried to hug Mrs. Fitzgerald, not even Annabelle, because if they did, Mrs. Fitzgerald would just stiffen like a board and stand there, waiting for it to be over. Cynthia always wondered why that was. After the door closed behind Mrs. Fitzgerald, Mimi asked Cynthia if she wanted to watch TV. Cynthia said sure, but there was something she had to do first. She opened her purse to get Detective Fiduccia's card, but couldn't find it. Oh well. She went upstairs to her parents' room, wishing that Clay would call back. He had sounded so awful. She went around the bed, opened up the drawer of her mother's night table, find her address book. Police was written alarmingly across the front in black magic marker, followed by the number. Beneath it was Fire Department. She dialed the number and asked to speak to Detective Fiduccia. The guy who answered the phone said for her to hang on. He'd look around to see if he was there. "Fiduccia," he said when he came on. "How can I help you?" "It's Cynthia Schuyler," she said. She visualized him rolling his eyes. She better get on with it. "Someone said something at school today I thought you'd want to know about. Something about what happened to Clay. Did someone tell you the information, or did you overhear it?" "Someone told me." "Who?" "I'd rather not say." "So do you want to know what he said or not?" "Go on." "He said Clay might have been grabbed by mistake, that whoever tied him up had the wrong guy. He said someone else on the football team had been ripping off some drug dealer, a drug dealer in New York, but grabbed Clay by mistake. And this friend of yours knows this how?" How was she going to explain without dragging not Fred into it? "I think he might know one of the people involved." "Come on, help me out, Cynthia. The dealer, the thief, or one of the thugs who hurt your friend?" "The dealer, I think." "It was Fred Cutter who told you this, wasn't it?" the detective said. Cynthia started. "How did he know?" "But why did he tell you?" he continued. "And how do you even know Cutter? He only got into town a few days ago. We're in the same English class. He knew I was upset about what happened to Clay. He must have known you'd pass the information on to somebody," the detective said, sounding like he was talking to himself. "He doesn't know about our connection, does he, Cynthia?" "No," she said loudly. And then she added more quietly, "No, no one does. But Detective Fiduccia, I don't want to get him into trouble." "Cutler's never been out of trouble," the detective said. "He was thrown out of Lawrenceville because of his association with the same dealer." "A guy I used to know," was how not Fred had described him. "He must have known he was taking a risk talking to you. The question is, why?" "He's trying to help, I think." "Oh, that'll be a first for this kid." "My father had a heart attack today," Cynthia announced. "What?" "I said my father had a heart attack today. I have to get off because my mother's supposed to call. They're in Washington, D.C. "Oh, well, I'm very sorry, Cynthia. Thanks." When she hung up, she hoped she hadn't messed up things for not Fred. They'd only just become friends. She really did think he was trying to help. Well, she had other things to worry about. Like, why didn't Clay call back? Or maybe he did call back and the line was busy because she was on the phone. Ugh! Downstairs in the den, she found Mimi sitting in her mom's chair, watching TV. "This is called The Millionaires, this movie. Sophia Loren and Peter Sellers. He plays a doctor from India. He's very funny. And she's married to a guy who cheats on her, and they beat each other up all the time. It's a comedy." The phone rang. Cynthia hurried into the kitchen. It was her mother. Cynthia quickly filled her in about Mrs. Valadares coming at 6 and staying overnight. Her mother was fine with it, but told Cynthia she needed to change the sheets on their bed and to put out a set of clean towels. Her parents' bed was such a pain to make. "The sheets are already clean in Skip's room," Cynthia said. "Why can't she sleep in there?" "Because Skip's room is a country mile from you girls," her mother told her. "So what?" "So I prefer she be closer to keep an eye on you." "Why? What do you think Mimi and I are going to do?" "It's not Mimi I worry about, dear." "What? Why are you worried about me?" "I'll rest much easier if you're not tempted to sneak out in your Mickey Mouse t-shirt to socialize." Oops. One night in July, she had snuck out to meet Evan down by the river to drink a beer, smoke cigarettes, and fool around a little. When she had come home, was tiptoeing up the back stairs, her father's voice had suddenly boomed out of the darkness. "Where the hell have you been?" He had been sitting on the terrace in the pitch dark in his underwear. What was he doing there? Her parents never got up in the middle of the night. I went for a walk, she told him. She saw his silhouette rise from the chair, and for a moment she felt a little scared. Her father was never the one to catch her. She wasn't sure how he was going to react. Get inside, he said, following her into the kitchen. He flicked on the overhead light. She had been wearing a long, threadbare Mickey Mouse t-shirt that night, one she had inherited from Skip, which she used to wear as a nightgown until she had started filling out under it. She had worn it that night, though, because Mickey's ears accentuated, well, her new breasts, and the white cotton cloth looked brilliant against her tan. The way the hem fell across her legs made them look a mile long. Evan had even complimented her on how great she looked, to which, of course, she had mumbled, oh, it's just what she had happened to be wearing when she heard the pebbles on the window. But when she had been caught by her father trying to sneak back into the house, Mickey needed a quick transformation, so she had dramatically cringed against the kitchen light, slumping her head and shoulders down so the shirt bagged over her chest, and in that position she had scoffed, I don't know what the big deal is. It's not like I would sneak out to socialize in a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. You look like Quasimodo, her father had observed, referencing the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Go to bed. Cynthia hadn't heard anything more about the incident. Until now. I don't even have Mickey Mouse anymore. You gave him to Ragnar Goosey Gander to clean the silver. That made her mother laugh. Oh, that's right, I did. Cynthia promised she'd change the sheets on her parents' bed and put out clean towels for Mrs. Valadares. Good girl. I'm going up to your father's room now, and hopefully he'll get some rest. And in the morning, hopefully we'll get some good news. I'll say prayers, Cynthia said. Tell Dad I love him. I will. And we love you too, sweetie. More than you know, particularly your dad. Oh, don't forget to feed Ashette. You think she's going to let me? They laughed and got off. Cynthia went in to tell Mimi she had to change the sheets for Mrs. Valadares in her parents' room. Mimi didn't offer to help, and Cynthia hadn't expected her to because she was pretty sure Mimi had never changed a sheet in her life. It required an awful lot of walking around to change the sheets on a king-size bed. The pillows were a particular pain because Cynthia's sister had mistakenly taken 2 sets of king-size pillowcases home with her to California, and she hadn't returned them yet, so now there was only 1 set. For Mrs. Valadares' sake, she had to put on 1 pillowcase going one way on the king-size pillow, and then another one going the other way, and then do the same on the other one. So 1 pillow was pink and the other was baby blue, but at least they were clean. Right? Right. As she stuffed the dirty sheets into the laundry chute, she remembered about Katie's barfy dress in her closet. So many responsibilities she had. She went to her room and fetched the dress out of the closet and carried it with 2 fingers to the laundry chute. Hopefully Ragnar Goosey Gander would know what to do with it. She had almost reached the den when the telephone rang again. She hurried across the kitchen, hoping it would be Clay. Hello? Cynthia, it's Patrick. Oh, Patrick, she cried. Clay called me, but he got cut off. How is he? He said he wasn't good. He still has his hand, so that's good. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you. He still has his hand. No one's really sure about how much use of it he's going to get back, though. And with all the bandages, his arm looks like something out of Attack of the Crab Monsters. You seen him? Yeah, I drove Mom up today. He looks better than he feels, if that makes any sense. He sounded really upset. Well, he is. He's upset about the medications they're giving him. When he refused to take the painkillers, my father told them to go ahead and inject them. Cynthia winced. When I got here, they had him in restraints, if you can believe, so they could put an IV in his arm. Poor kid. He must have been angry, Cynthia said. They put something in the IV to knock him out. It was Mom who freaked out. She tried to hit my father. Cynthia murmured, I'm so sorry, Patrick. When he didn't respond, she said, but you've spoken to Clay since then, right? Yeah. He's still really loopy, but he wanted you to know he's okay. I can't thank you enough for letting me know. He sighed. Well, I'm probably not doing a very good job of it. I'm kind of rattled. I don't wonder, she said gently. There was a metallic click, and a woman's deadpan voice said, "Please deposit 25 cents for the next 3 minutes." Damn it, Patrick fumed. I only have a dime. She heard the coin go in. Look, Cynthia, I hope I haven't upset you. You haven't. There was a hard metallic click and then silence. Cynthia was so mad she slammed the phone in the cradle so hard it bounced out and crashed on the floor. She didn't care. She covered her face and threw herself across the counter, sobbing. Clay hadn't done anything to anybody. It wasn't fair. And what did the Setons ever do to deserve this? All this stuff happening to their family. Why was God torturing everybody? Dad was in the hospital. Cynthia, Mimi said. Couldn't Mimi see she was upset? There was the sound of a telephone ringing somewhere. Please hang up and try your call again, a woman's voice said from the floor. Please hang up now. This is a recording. Please hang. And then that horrible noise started. Sounded like someone was trying to electrocute somebody with a pulsating death ray. E. Cynthia pulled herself off the counter. Oh, shut up, she yelled, stamping her foot. Mimi had her hand over her ears. Did you get cut off again? Cynthia sniffed, wiped her eyes, and walked over to the phone. Yeah. She picked up the phone and hung it up. Patrick says Clay still has his hand. That's fantastic news, Mimi cried. It was, wasn't it? Cynthia thought. What was the matter with her? She should be grateful. So far, all the news had been pretty good, encouraging, about Clay and about Dad. She still wanted to know why God was torturing everybody today. She went into the living room to get a Parliament out of the silver cigarette holder. She picked up the matching silver lighter off the coffee table to light it and brought it into the den with her. She gave Mimi a drag. Sophia Lored's father died. And that guy's a psychiatrist right there. He wants to marry her for her buddy, Mimi summarized. He told her she could never make a man happy until she gets over her father fixation. Huh? Cynthia said. Yeah, it's kind of a weird movie, Mimi admitted. Cynthia tried to watch. The couple was on some kind of pier, but she just wasn't into it. When she finished her cigarette, she decided she'd make a card for her father, and maybe one for Clay, too. She liked making collages. She went into the kitchen pantry to find pieces of cardboard they saved from Dad's shirt bundles from the Wang's laundry. Then she found a pair of scissors and a bottle of Elmer's glue in the junk drawer, brought them into the den. She sat down on the floor at the coffee table. What you doing? Mimi asked. She started pulling magazines toward her. Life, Look, McCall's, Newsweek, The New Yorker. I'm going to make a card for my father. A collage, of words that describe him. Oh, he'll like that, Mimi said. You think so? Uh-huh. Maybe I should make him one, too. No, you could just sign mine, Cynthia said. I think I want to make one for Clay, too, but I don't think a collage is going to work. She didn't really know Clay all that well, and since he might never play sports again, there weren't a whole lot of words she could use to describe him or his interest. Cute, movies, Spanish, Attica prison. That wouldn't be much of a card. Her father was easier, and she started cutting words out of the magazines right away. She wasn't allowed to cut up National Geographic unless it was for a school report, so she didn't even look in it. She didn't know why her father had that rule, because after he thumbed through them once, he filed them by date in bookcases down in the basement and never looked at them again. Cynthia dashed upstairs to look in an American Girl and found what she was looking for. An ad she remembered that said pizzazz. Her father really didn't have much pizzazz, but she knew he would like to think she thought he did. She also found, quote, Canadian Girls, ! In the same issue and cut that out. She brought these downstairs to assess her collection. Tall, camera, good-looking, Schlitz, business, TWA, nice lawn, crossword puzzle, smart, tennis, Europe, strong, executive, skiing, U.S. Army, nice shoes, gravy, airports, garden, accurate accounting, loves animals, travel. Oh, did she have that before? Washington and old car. Yeah, old car is right. How's she going to get him to get rid of that thing? Yep, pizzazz and Canadian Girls would complete the card. The doorbell rang. Mimi was still watching the movie, so Cynthia went to answer it. Mrs. Valadares was standing on the terrace with her little suitcase. She looked different. Instead of the plain gray dress and flat black shoes she always wore at the Watsons, she was wearing a pretty blue dress and pumps. She even had earrings on and lipstick. She looked very pretty, and Cynthia told her so. Mrs. Valadares looked skeptical, but she murmured thank you and came in. Cynthia explained that Mimi was in the den, but she would show her upstairs to her room. Mom wants you to sleep in their room. I was sorry to hear about your father, the housekeeper said softly as she followed her upstairs. He is how old? She paused. He was older than Mom. She knew that much. 55, I think. She continued up the stairs. My father also had a heart attack, but that is not what killed him. At the top of the stairs, Cynthia turned around to look at her, wondering, well, what had killed her father? With new respect for his health, I am sure Mr. Schuyler has many good years ahead of him. Her eyes swept the landing. I am sleeping over here, Cynthia said, moving on. I changed the sheets and put out clean towels like Mom asked me to. She led her into the bedroom and around the corner to show her the view. People usually looked at the lawn and trees and the river and said, wow. But Mrs. Valadares merely smiled slightly and nodded, as if Cynthia was a bellboy giving her a tour or something. Cynthia was dying to ask her what happened to her father, but she saw Mrs. Valadares was staring at the bed. I'm sorry about the pillows being two different colors. It is perfectly fine, Mrs. Valadares said, walking over to swing her suitcase onto the foot of the bed. You girls must be hungry. She undid the fasteners on her suitcase and raised the lid. Cynthia burst out laughing when she saw 2 frozen Swanson fried chicken dinners on top. Now Mrs. Valadares genuinely smiled, something Cynthia did not often see. Mimi's really excited about the fried chicken, Cynthia said. Does not often get to eat it. She said you had hidden them. Mrs. Valadares pressed a finger to her lips, and then she picked up the TV dinners. Now, where are you and where is Miss Mimi? Mrs. Valadares followed Cynthia down the hall as she pointed out her room and then continued to the guest room where she opened the door to reveal clothes strewn all over the place, which is how Mimi's room usually was. Ah, Mrs. Valadares said. After Miss Mimi selected her outfit, I trust there was still time enough for her to attend school. Oh, yeah, Cynthia said. She gave us, me and Mom, a show this morning. She made us wait downstairs, and then she came down like a model on 4-inch heels. A look of vague alarm passed over Mrs. Valadares' face. No, Mimi practiced, and she was walking really, really well. She was as tall as I was, and she looked great, Mrs. Valadares, and she knew it. She talked to everybody she saw at school. She made like 50 new friends. But with her face so damaged? It was because her face was all messed up, Mrs. Valadares. She said she felt like she did when she was a kid on Halloween, when no one knew who she was behind a mask, and she could pretend to be whoever she wanted. But she wasn't pretending. Today, she was confident. She was outgoing, charming even. And she was glamorous with a capital G. Mr. Wolfgang B. Zollner even asked her to come to Theater 323 because he said she had such great presence. Mrs. Valadares had turned away towards the stairs. "What's wrong?" Cynthia asked. "Aren't you happy for Mimi? She had a great day." She didn't answer, but continued down the stairs with the frozen dinners. What was the matter with her? What was going on? Cynthia followed her and was about to say something in the front hall when the housekeeper stopped and turned around. "I am happy for Miss Mimi. I care deeply about Miss Mimi." She hesitated. "But I wish Mr. Watson would take Miss Mimi away, or that Miss Mimi did go away to school." She hesitated again. "I do not like the effect Mrs. Watson has on Miss Mimi's spirit." Her eyes moved past Cynthia and down to the floor as if she was ashamed. "There, I said it." Cynthia stood there, blinking, not knowing what to say. Then Mrs. Valadares' eyes came back up to meet hers. "But I have confided it in Miss Mimi's one true friend." Mimi's one true friend? What did that mean? She said it like she expected Cynthia to do something. What could she do about Mrs. Watson? She was just a kid. Oh, maybe she wanted her to talk to Mimi about going away to school. She didn't want to do that. "Mrs. V to the rescue!" Mimi exclaimed, rushing in from the kitchen with Ashette on her heels. She gave the housekeeper a big hug, but then jumped back saying, "Yikes! Something's cold." "Swanson frozen fried chicken dinners," Mrs. Valadares said victoriously, holding them up. "Hooray!" Mimi cheered. Then the two went off to the kitchen together, arm in arm, laughing their heads off. Cynthia felt sort of dazed. She had never heard Mrs. Valadares laugh like that. Ashette looked up at her and barked. Uh-oh, she'd forgotten to feed her. "Sorry, girl," she murmured, moving ahead. "I'll feed you now." "Mrs. V says I have to start putting my clothes away before your mother throws me out," Mimi said. Mrs. Valadares was setting the temperature on the oven. Cynthia's room was very tidy, I noticed. "But Mimi's a guest," Cynthia said, taking a can of dog food out of the pantry. "So Mom doesn't really care." "Ah," Mrs. Valadares said. She walked over to where Mimi was fussing with the foil on the dinners and put a hand on her shoulder. "But we want Mrs. Schuyler to care, don't we, Miss Mimi?" "Yes, we do," Mimi said. "We really, really, really do." Cynthia dipped the can in the can opener and glanced over to find Mimi and Mrs. Valadares standing there, looking at her expectantly. Mimi's eyebrows rose. "Baby?" she said hopefully. "Baby what?" Cynthia asked. Mimi and Mrs. Valadares looked at each other and then back at Cynthia. "Go on, Miss Mimi," the housekeeper murmured. "I want to live here," Mimi said. "For real." "Well, I don't know. That doesn't come as a big surprise to me. How about to you? Man, if I were Mimi, I'd want to live at the Schuylers too. Although when I was Cynthia's age, I didn't want to. I wanted to grow up and go away somewhere. I didn't know where. Somewhere I could drink and smoke, surely. Anyway, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It is so good to be back. I wanted to tell you, I have started the Detention Club at Patreon. And we just had a meeting there recently. If you sign up for $5 a month, you get a few things. First of all, you'd be invited to a private meeting after every episode just to talk about it. And I'd tell you why I wrote about certain things. And then I get feedback from people because that helps me steer the show. You know what I mean? I'm not in this alone, guys. You're in it too. And I'm sorry to charge you $5 a month, but these expenses are adding up over here. So if you want to join, I'd love it. And I'd love to have your input, is the honest truth. I feel like we've started something quite wonderful because it's not just the wonderful people I went to high school with who are listening. There are just wonderful people in general. I want you to know them too. Anyway, you can go to Patreon and look for the Class of 74, and it lists all the stuff. And the other piece is the episodes being published consistently the same time every week, which will be 6 a.m. on Mondays, on Monday morning, so you can have your coffee with it. All right, guys, please be well. Have a wonderful week. And remember, we don't drink and drive anymore, ever, but we do have fun. So go out there, have some fun, be well. I'll see you next week. Bye.